everything. The city is ground zero in a war it doesn't even know is happening. And everything will change. This war is bigger than everyone.
The rising is coming. This is a war I need to fight alone. My way.
You've chosen isn't going to be an easy one. But what has begun with you? And if you get in my way, I'm going to kill you too.
Everybody, and welcome once again to GeekFest Rants. My name is Kyle Perrone, and joining me here I have Kyle Perrone. Say hi, Kyle.
Hi, Kyle.
Well, today we are going to be doing kind of like a roundup of what some of our, Marvel properties that we've been following, how they've been doing so far. We've had a couple of movies. We've had at least one show pretty much finish up during the season. So let's begin with that particular show, which is Daredevil. A couple of months ago, we've had the finale for the season. These are short seasons, as you guys know. They're usually about something like, 12, 13 episodes?
Yeah,
something
13,
like that.
yeah.
And this time around, the show introduced a couple of new characters that I would say took a pretty big chunk of the season, to give them a lot of airtime. Aside from just Daredevil doing his thing, they brought in some new big characters. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the first main character that the show brought on?
The biggest one was obviously Jon Bernthal's Punisher. That was a fantastic take on the Punisher. Best I've seen.
Well, what else do you know Bernthal from?
He was Shane on Walking Dead, and he was in Sicario. He was in some Dwayne Johnson movie too, but he was in a bunch of other stuff. And then the other character was Electra, and she was from the comics, and she got to do a lot of stuff in this season. I was kind of disappointed how they killed her off at the end, but she's going to come back, but it just didn't make sense for me. But
well, I like the fact that they kind of split the season up. I think I would kind of say into three parts. First, you had Daredevil dealing with the whole Punisher situation, and the gangs are fighting, and there's a new player in the mix who is the Punisher, who's already the Punisher. There is no backstory as far as having to give you a backstory on the spot. We learn his backstory through the season.
Mm-hmm.
And I love how we went from the Punisher to the jail storyline, which kind of reintroduced Fisk to us.
yeah, that was cool.
He was
that was
just
a surprise.
Yeah, it was. I guess I don't know if they kept that on the wraps or not. But again, he is such a great actor, and I know last time we talked about him, I was gushing all over Vincent D'Onofrio and how good he is. He is so perfect for this role. Not that I can compare him and say that he is so true to life to the comic book character, because I honestly never read the comic, but I'm aware of the character. But what he does with that character, he owns that character. With the Punisher, I loved Bernthal's portrayal of him. I've seen some of the previous films, I remember, and they were done by different actors. We did a show, I think we actually had an editorial somewhere in there, talking about all the different incarnations of the Punisher. This particular one, I remember saying, after seeing it, going, oh my God, they have to bring him back because he plays it so well. He's so like shell-shocked and just single-minded, and he's got his code, and that's how he's kind of living his mission, basically, of revenge for what happened to his family. But the best scene, which I guess you can kind of compare it also to the first season scene. Remember the first season with the hallway scene? That they had that whole thing where it looked as if it was shot in one continuous take of a hallway fight that just never seems to end. This season they had a prison scene where I think Fisk is trying to have the Punisher killed, and he has to fight all these prisoners in a very confined space, and he's basically the last man standing at the end.
That wasn't the scene that was supposed to be that other scene from season 1. It was I think it was in the second episode of the season where it was in the stairwell fight where he's just going down like one continuous shot. He's just going down each floor and he's flooring everybody down there.
But that was another. You're right. That was another one of the scenes that was reminiscent. But I think my favorite one was the prison. The prison scene was just great. But you're right. They do another one of those. I don't know if you can call them a trademark scene or whatever you want to call it. Again, if you're a fan of movies and the specific kind of movies, Old Boy, the original Old Boy, it's called the hammer scene, where your hero is fighting tons and tons of bad guys with a hammer, basically, and it's that kind of a scene where you got to go one by one by one by one. But anyway, as we were saying, in this season, I would kind of call the jail scene, the prison scene, is like the second act of the season. Yeah, where you do get this what appears to be bonus, Fisk, and now he is. You can see how even in jail he is becoming more of the Kingpin. He's becoming more of. It's kind of like he's becoming less human. He is a machine, and he is conniving, and he is scheming, and how he works, from nothing, because he almost has no support in jail except for whatever money, his cronies outside can kind of still, gather up to kind of keep things going and to protect his girlfriend. But in jail, you can kind of see how he's able to manipulate people into being on his side, and kind of by the time we're done with his portion of the story, basically he's the guy who's running, that wing of the jail. The third part of the season, and again, because this is a short season, this doesn't take too many episodes to get to certain things, and they all overlap. Keep that in mind. The third part of the season is the whole Electra thing that Kyle was talking about, which in a way, it was a little bit of my least favorite part of the season.
Yeah, because all the Punisher stuff, that was the best.
The Punisher stuff was awesome, and then, like I said, and then you throw Fisk, but the Electra stuff is the stuff that gets a little bit almost supernatural in a way. It's a little bit, the mysticism of these fighters of this cult, and his trainer comes back.
Yeah, Stick.
Stick comes back, and he's mixed up in this whole thing. And Electra, very good character, very different character. She definitely, it's a take charge kind of character. And like Kyle said, I guess what you can kind of call it a cliffhanger by the time we get to the end, that she is dead, but we all know she's not dead.
And also Murdoch tells Karen that he's Daredevil, which is a big thing.
Right, another big cliffhanger-y type of thing.
And then we don't know what her reaction really is to that. Right. Other than, but that's it.
But I guess they have to continue with at least with this whole mysticism, secret society aspect, because it is part of the story.
I feel like that group is probably going to be the bad guy of the Defenders. That group, or at least in some way, they're going to be the whole reason all these heroes come together.
Well, in all this time, we know there's more shows coming. They've cast a lot of new people in these shows.
They're doing a Punisher show.
Well,
too.
That's the whole thing. We were saying, as soon as we were done watching this, we were like, oh my God, they got to bring him back. They have to. They just have to bring him back because he did such a great job. And it's perfect for him. This guy has a face like a boxer. He's got this crooked nose that looks like it's been broken like 10 times. And he played the role so deadpan and so psychologically scarred that he was just perfect. He nailed it perfect for what I would like that character to be. Again, if you're a big comic book person, you might say, oh, wait a minute, but he didn't do this or he didn't do that. He even at the end, by the time we get to the end of his part of the story, he is making his shirt, the skull shirt.
Yeah, he has the shirt. He has
is
the
based
trench
on
coat.
which is based on that X-ray of his head that was injured from his backstory. I would say excellent job. We were wondering if they were going to bring him back and this and that, and then all of a sudden rumors started going. Not rumors, but people were, they should spin him off. They should do something with him. It would be great if they could. And a couple of weeks later, they said, yes, they're going to do it. And it's like, wow, that's amazing, because you figured, Netflix already had their plan of what were going to be their Marvel shows. And that was never part of the deal. But I guess he made such a great impression, like he did with us, that they realized that this is a character they could really, mine for more stories. So that's great. This is also coming off of Jessica Jones, we watched earlier, and we really enjoyed that show. We got to meet Luke Cage.
Mm-hmm. And he's getting his own show.
He's the next one up, I believe, pretty soon. And I think they must be...
Yeah, he's in, I think, November, I think.
Yeah, they're getting ready to start, giving us little bits and pieces of that, I'm pretty sure. And you have the other two shows afterwards. Now, I don't know where the Punisher is going to fit in this. I don't know where they're going to weave him in.
I don't know if he's going to be like a major player in Defenders, but he has to show up at some point.
But if they're spinning him off, he's getting his own show.
Yeah, I mean,
but I don't know where he falls in. Does he go after Defenders?
I think it'll probably be after Defenders, because they already have a set schedule already of what they're doing up until then.
Right, and we are always still hoping that somehow, in some shape or form, they're going to bring this into the movie somehow, a cameo or something.
I want to see either the most likely scenario, if they ever do a Daredevil crossover with anybody, it would probably be with Spider-Man, because they're always in the comics together, like all the time. They're always teaming up, and they would probably bring Daredevil onto maybe one of the new Spider-Man movies for like a 15-minute fight scene or something.
Nothing wrong with that.
They can't bring him onto Daredevil, but they could bring Daredevil to them. That would be pretty cool if they did that.
Yeah, so again, I can't wait for them to get around to bringing him back, and we'll see. Now, the big, not only monetarily successful, but probably most eagerly anticipated Marvel film this summer has been Captain America Civil War. We saw that one also a few weeks ago. We loved it. It was a huge hit. It was a box office bonanza. I believe it even surpassed, the success of Deadpool.
Yeah, it did.
Which Deadpool was an earlier,
and it was also R too.
Yeah, so. It was R. Deadpool was R. It was early. It was pre-summer. So Captain America is definitely the summer, big Marvel franchise tentpole type of film. It continues basically with the story of Winter Soldier. It continues with that tone. And it also acknowledges and uses the events, obviously, of Ultron from the Avengers. In a way, this movie feels a little like an Avenger film because they have so many characters.
Well, it is. It basically is. It's just the only difference is that Captain America, Chris Evans has the main title card for the movie.
Right.
But it basically is an Avengers movie.
It is. The basic story is, these guys in the process of saving people, a lot of people are dying, a lot of people are getting injured, property and this and that whole type of thing. So they want to be reined in. They want to kind of bring them in, have them registered, have them be, supervised, I guess, by the government. And that's something that Cap doesn't really like that much, and Tony Stark is for, and that's kind of how the battle lines get drawn in terms of pro that or against that. And in the process, you have another bad guy, Zemo, I think his name is.
Zemo.
That he is kind of behind the scenes manipulating certain events to look as if the Winter Soldier is involved in some terrorist type of activities, including blowing up kind of like a UN kind of meeting that is happening. They're supposed to be signing the acceptance of the
Sokovia Accords,
of the Avengers. I don't know if you can call it the Avengers, of them being registered for that whole thing. In the process, killing who already is. I don't know if he already
was the king.
He already was. Black Panther's father gets killed in the process of that. And it kind of makes everybody even nuts in terms of, okay, this guy is, we got to get the Winter Soldier, and Cap is defending him, so we have to get Cap and this and that.
Yeah.
So that's the movie basically in terms of where we're going with the movie. It takes a couple of turns here and there where there appears to be a plot of creating more super soldiers that later on turn out to be a diversion. That wasn't really the plot. That wasn't really the end plan. The end game was basically to get the Avengers to split. Zemo basically wanted Tony and Cap to break apart and to shatter, to splinter the group. Mm-hmm. And in a way, he succeeds in doing that. Like I said before, a few new characters. My favorite one of all the new characters is obviously Black Panther. We get to see a brand new character that has been teased on previous films when we got to introduce to Claw, right? Is that it?
Well, yeah. I forget his first name, but yeah, Claw.
That was an Ultron.
That was an Age of Ultron because he was dealing with adamantium. Well, not adamantium, vibranium.
And he's played by Andy Serkis. And now he doesn't appear in this film.
No.
But because all these Marvel films kind of build on each other, we know already of him being a bad guy, and we kind of got the beginning of the story of how he loses his arm.
He's probably going to be in Black Panther movie.
So when the Black Panther film actually does come out, now we have a bad guy. Now we have the lead Black Panther character and the background of his father dying as a result of this particular skirmish. His particular superpowers, I guess, are what? Like, he's very athletic, and his costume, and he's got weapons like nails, claws.
He's really well trained. His whole suit is made of vibranium. Basically, his whole suit is made out of Captain America's shield, and he has like vibranium claws too. Like
now, is the Winter Soldier's arm also made of that? Okay, because there's a very extensive fight scene, a chase fight scene between Black Panther and Winter Soldier, where those two kind of go head to head, and it was really good. But the other cool thing that we get in this movie, not only do we get your typical Avenger characters, but we also get Ant-Man.
Yeah, Ant-Man, which was cool. And then we got Giant Man too.
Well, explain to us what that's all about.
Yeah, because in the comic,
that wasn't on in the Ant-Man film. We never got that.
No, but in the comics, he can shrink and he can grow. And when he's big, he's Giant Man. When he's small, he's Ant-Man.
And why don't you tell us about the scene in the airport where they do actually get to engage in all that stuff?
Yeah, that was phenomenal what they did with having Giant Man, and then Spider-Man, that's another thing we got to talk about. Spider-Man, him going all over the place, just swinging around.
Well, this goes back to not too long ago when we actually talked about it, that Marvel made a deal with Sony to share Spider-Man in this film and to give Spider-Man his own standalone.
Well, his own trilogy.
Right. Therefore, ending or stopping the original plans for the, Garfield was the actor.
Yeah.
Stopping that entire train of future Spider-Man stuff and rebooting him, basically.
Yeah.
Here we get him. I don't know if you want to call it an extend cameo, because he's there for quite a bit.
He's there for he's got like at least 20 minutes.
First, you got a scene between him and Tony where Tony kind of tricks / blackmails him into joining up. He shows up at his house and again, no backstory, no origin story. He's already Spider-Man, but he's kind of testing out different outfits and different technology. So by the time we see him, he's in full costume, which is cool because he's got it all down already.
Yeah.
And the scenes of him fighting, to me, it sounded exactly like what Spider-Man used to sound like, at least on the animated show. And from what I understand, people tell me that's what he sounds like on the comics.
Yeah, the comics, that's
wisecracking, kiddie, kind of like juvenile.
Like when they had Tobey Maguire, he wasn't really doing that too much. And when he did do it, it wasn't that good. And then when they did it with Garfield did it a lot better. And then this time they just knocked it out of the park. This was the perfect Spider-Man we've been waiting for.
Like I mentioned before, we do get the traditional Avenger roster, the Vision from the previous one. The Black Widow's there, and Hawkeye is there.
Scarlet Witch.
Scarlet Witch, another one from the previous one. But also in the bad guy camp, we do get Frank Grillo, who plays
Crossbones,
who in the last film, I think in Winter Soldier, he was injured and kind of burned up.
Yeah.
But here, they do have a battle with him right in the beginning, and it seems as if he's killed off. They kind of...
Yeah, they just blew him up.
They knock him out.
They always blow up all their villains. I hate it. But they left Zemo alive, though, which is good, which I think sets up something really cool. Because in the comics, Zemo leads, on multiple occasions, the Masters of Evil, which is like the biggest Avengers villains that come together.
Oh, okay.
So,
but he's Hydra, right?
No, he was just pissed off at the Avengers.
Oh, okay.
He wasn't Hydra. I mean, he was using Hydra a little bit.
Was he part of Sokovia?
Yeah, he was part of the Sokovian military, I think.
Okay,
and
that's what it was.
His family got killed.
Family got killed. So now that's one of the things I noticed about this film, which I guess they do explore this in the comic in certain ways, but here we get to see it in a visual manner, I guess if you can call it, is the theme of no matter how good of a good guy you are or your team is, the unintended consequences of being the good guy, the collateral damage that you would like to just kind of brush off as collateral damage, and we don't really are responsible for collateral damage, but collateral damage ends up spawning off all types of new bad guys that are very angry, and they kind of self-create more bad guys. It's this whole, you treat the patients, but you kill the patient in the process because the treatment is so aggressive. And that's one of these things that there are other shows, even on TV, like I think when we watch Arrow or some of these other shows, or even The Flash, that theme keeps coming back.
Yeah, The Flash, just he every season he screws something up and makes this whole new problem.
Right, and
all the problems stem from him.
And it's this whole backlash of the public saying, yes, you are a good guy, and yes, you are helping us, but you are creating more bad guys than you're destroying because of, your powers. And I'm glad that in the movies, they're also kind of addressing that issue. Now, I don't know if that's something that's going to continue to be addressed, or if that's something that's only for the Civil War related themes.
Well, obviously, we didn't get a solid conclusion to the problem. They're still divided.
Yeah, they're still divided. They're not trying to kill each other, as more or less. But,
well, they were never trying to kill each other.
Right, but they were going at it really hard. I mean, Rhodey gets really injured. He's like,
that was an accident.
He's trying to learn to kind of walk. Yeah, he was shot accidentally. But again, it's that whole unintended consequences theme that keeps coming back, not only with civilians getting blown out of the buildings and stuff, or even the superheroes themselves getting injured because of that whole thing. Overall, the movie was fantastic in terms of action. To me, it felt like a perfect continuation of Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
It was almost like a two-part movie because the theme is exactly the same. It's like it stops here and it continues there. I cannot say that I liked it more than Winter Soldier. I think I liked it just as much. I think I would give Winter Soldier a little more credit. Only because when I compare the first Captain America film to Winter Soldier, I like Winter Soldier so much more. The way that it's presented, it's a darker, more serious film than the first Captain America. That to me, that change of gears, that switch of almost, dare we say, comic bookish, America apple pie type of presentation for the first film. And then you switch to the Winter Soldier story, which was, whoa, this is like very dark, very 70s, type of conspiratorial film. This one, it pretty much stays in that route. But like we mentioned earlier, it's also to me a little more Avengery than Captain America, something like that. And yeah, like Kyle mentioned, it is so open for what comes next. It's definitely a midpoint of some sort.
Yeah, next we have Doctor Strange, we have Spider-Man next year.
Well, Spider-Man is going to be Homecoming.
Yeah, Spider-Man Homecoming.
Which, funny thing, we mentioned Homecoming because when they were triggering the secret words for the Winter Soldier, one of them is Homecoming. So I'm like, does this have to do with Spider-Man? Is this part of the movie, or is this a coincidence, or is this on purpose, or is it an Easter egg? What is it?
Well, Robert Downey Jr. is going to be in Spider-Man Homecoming.
Well, you can't listen to Robert Downey Jr. anymore because...
Well, no, he is. It's confirmed.
What I'm saying is that every time we think he's done with the Avengers and he's saying, this is my last film and this is my last this, my last that, he announces that he's going to do this, he's going to do that, maybe one more Iron Man, maybe we'll do another Iron Man, maybe he'll do a cameo here, maybe he'll do a cameo there. So You just have to wait to see what
happens. It's about
happens.
the money. Yeah, well, he definitely, his contract expired. Well, his main contract expired after Infinity War because those were those two movies he had to do no matter what. Now they just added on to it just to make it more appealing.
Well, speaking of Infinity War, they also, I think, announced that they're changing the name of that.
Well, they said they can still change it. They haven't changed it, but they said they could change it. Like, it's subject to change.
Yeah, that they're kind of placeholders, like Infinity War Part 1, Infinity War Part 2, and they might change it. But those are Avenger films, right?
Yes.
So in theory, is Captain America over?
Well, theoretically, based on the contract, Chris Evans is done with Captain America films. But he could renew it still. But Avengers films, all those actors still have to do those two Avengers films.
Right. But what I'm saying is that as far as the announced films that we know exist, there is no more Captain America films on the horizon right now.
Not right now, no.
So the only way they can conclude this story is bring it over to Avengers, which is what they're doing, basically.
Yeah, because they had that story basically sets up the Avengers for Infinity War, because now they have to somehow they have to all get back together to fight the new bad guy.
Well, that gives us our second Marvel entry, I guess, for the summer, and our third entry, which is one we just saw today, which is technically it is Marvel. It's 20th Century Fox Marvel, but it is Marvel. We're talking about X-Men Apocalypse, which we just saw today. Now, Kyle, why don't you tell us a little bit about what's the plot of this one?
So it's in the 80s. It's about pretty much give or take a day, 10 years after the last movie.
Right.
It's
Days
like
of Future
the
Past,
10th anniversary of when Magneto stormed the White House.
And almost killed everybody.
And then Mystique stopped him. So now Magneto was trying to hide, and he was trying to have a family and trying to live a normal life. But then that gets screwed up because he tried saving one guy, and then
his powers are shown, and they
then
they come after him like a lynch mob, basically.
And then he flipped out, and then Xavier's has the school.
Right, but we're also being told the backstory of who Apocalypse was.
Well,
it's ancient Egypt.
He was an ancient Egyptian, the first mutant.
Right. Apparently, he's supposed to be a mutant back when they didn't think they had mutants, but he would consider himself to be more like a god, and he gathers together whatever mutants are there, and they're about to do this kind of body exchange. He's supposed to switch bodies or whatever in the middle of this religious ceremony, and some people that are after him manage to stop the ceremony and seal him in his tomb and kill off all his henchmen, I guess.
Yeah.
And now we jump forward, 4,000 years, more or less, or more.
And then they wake him up.
And I don't want to say accidentally wake him up, but they
did it on purpose.
There are religious followers who wanted to wake him up, and now he's up and running, and he's regathering his henchmen, and we get a whole bunch of new and not so new X-Men who are on the bad guy side, and we get some in the good guy side.
Well, this is really the only major complaint I had with the movie, is that all the people that were on Apocalypse's side, they're all good guys in the comics, except for Magneto.
Well, Storm is Storm.
Yeah, Storm is Storm. And then they had Angel. Angel's a good guy.
Angel was a good guy in the previous film. And this was directed by Bryan Singer, who had done previous X-Men films.
He didn't do X-Men 3.
No, he did the first two, I believe.
I feel like he's just ignoring all the other X-Men movies that he didn't direct. That's kind of feel like he did.
Kinda yes and no, because remember, this new wave of X-Men film acknowledges the original X-Men films because the actors are them older.
Yeah, but here I feel like they're slowly since time got changed, that they're gonna change, that they're gonna get rid of a lot of. They're getting rid of Wolverine soon.
Right. The history is being rewritten.
Yeah, and I don't know if they can have all the original actors come back later on, because they still want to keep using that young cast.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Now let me ask you something. Now, is it Psylocke?
Psylocke's a good guy too.
But she was never.
She was never in any other movie.
In any of the other X-Men films. No. She's a new character for film.
Yeah, but she's a good guy in the comics too.
So I guess at some point they're going to have to turn her good.
I hope they do, because she's awesome in the comics.
Now, here we have, like we had on the last film that was very good and very well done, and they used it perfectly, Quicksilver.
Oh, God.
Which they once again do this amazing sequence of him saving the group, and they do it in that slow motion manner with the music playing behind them. And somewhat comic relief, the way he does things. And the whole thing with him not telling Magneto that he's his son. So that's kind of like an ongoing thing, I guess, with this particular franchise.
He was my favorite character. He's
a funny character. We also got...
I actually thought they were going to kill him off when
they
I was
did
so
it.
scared. I was like,
no,
no,
you can't do it. They did it on the other side. You can't do it on both sides.
Yeah, that's just a waste.
You can't kill two Quicksilvers.
Fun fact: they're both Quicksilvers were in Kick-Ass. The first one, they were. Remember Evan Peters plays his friend, so they were both walking together.
How weird is that?
Oh my god.
And if you remember in Godzilla, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch play husband and wife. Which is even more bizarre.
Well, in the comics, in the ultimate comics, they have kind of an incest thing as like brother and sister. I know, it's so like, and the guy who wrote it was the guy who wrote Kick-Ass.
That is so weird. That is just bizarre.
Those characters are all a mess.
There's a lot of little backstories here. Cyclops and his brother, how he's able to kind of get his powers slightly under control. The whole history of him at home and that was kind of neat. Raven, obviously, and but and Professor X and how he loses his hair as a result of the battle that he's fighting against Apocalypse and that sort of thing. The other thing I really, really liked in this film was, and you mentioned a little bit, I think, Weapon X. Yeah. In the middle of this whole, because while Apocalypse is doing his thing, we also have Stryker attacking, the mutants and kidnapping some of them in the process.
Yeah, this is while he still has like government authority.
Right.
This is like if X-Men 2 was still happening, like at that time he wasn't part of the government. He was just on his own private funding. But this is before private funding, so he couldn't get too crazy with them.
But are we assuming that, and this is a difficult question, are we assuming that the change in everything, we're not treating it as a reboot, like we mentioned earlier, we're not treating it as a creative reboot, we're treating it as, or the way that they write it, they're writing it as if what happened last time changed everything.
Yeah, well,
the traveling in time is what triggers all these changes that make the past movies kind of obsolete.
Here's the other thing that kind of, well, First Class still remains the same because First Class takes place before
the first films.
Well, because they traveled back in time to the 70s and that takes place in the 60s.
Right.
So everything before that point still remains the same.
Right. Okay. Right. Because the time travel aspect was in the 70s.
Yeah.
That's when Wolverine comes back and it's like, everything is a little different.
And if they hadn't done the time travel thing, they probably would not have found Apocalypse.
Oh, of course not. Anything that happened on that second movie. Yeah. Now, again, speaking of which, this brings us Wolverine, and he's attached to some kind of weird helmet and some power packs.
Yeah, that's from the comics. That's when he was being experimented on, and that was after he was experimented on, and they made him into like a super soldier, like cyborg robot thing with like this, like, it wasn't like he wasn't a cyborg. They just had like this mind control device on him, basically. But obviously they didn't turn it on, so they just let him go, and he went crazy because they wiped his memories.
Right. So, yeah, we do get a lot of this kind of stuff. We get Jean Grey at one point displaying the Phoenix powers.
Yeah, the Phoenix
which is something,
Force,
again, that in the other films, we don't get that till all the way in the end until she goes berserk.
And it wasn't as cool as it was now. That was this time they made it really good.
Well, yeah, and it's like Xavier knows about that. He's almost encouraging her to, to bring that out, to help them. So it is interesting how they're rearranging certain aspects of all these powers that these guys have. I think Magneto was a little bit underused on purpose, maybe.
Well, I thought he was pretty well. Well, it's like he had like the first like part of the movie to himself.
Right. After once he's with Apocalypse, he kind of steps back and lets the story tell itself.
Because Apocalypse is supposed to be the big bad guy, which I also felt Apocalypse, they could have done more with him, because in the comics he can change size like he does when he's with Xavier in that dream world.
Yeah,
but he can actually like change size, and he can. They said, he has like all the powers that all the mutants have and stuff, and I'm like, she should have used all of them. He only used like 2. He was still cool.
Oscar Isaac, I don't think he dies at the end.
No, he does. Remember, they like disintegrate him.
Yeah, but I thought he kind of
his
disintegrates,
skin melted off.
But he's kind of disappears. I thought he kind of. I
No,
thought they rode a way of squeaking him out. Or
No,
something.
they were trying.
You don't think so?
Psylocke was trying to make a portal around him to get him out,
okay.
but it didn't work, and they just blew him up basically. I was surprised with the amount of gore they got away with in this movie, though.
You think so? It wasn't that
They were
bad.
peeling the faces off.
Yeah, but it was very.
There's that one time where they just grab the guy and they twist him up like.
Yeah, I did remember that, but it was
gruesome.
very quick and it was very small. You know, the way that he manipulates people.
That was pretty brutal for a PG-13 movie.
It's pretty well done. Now, tell us about the after credits scene.
Okay, so the after credits scene is these guys in suits walking through the
mess,
the complex that Wolverine left and
killed everybody.
Yeah, and they're just walking around. One of them has a briefcase, and he stops, he puts it down, and he goes to the this refrigerator. He pulls out a vial of Wolverine's DNA, and he puts it in the box, and then he closes it, and it says Essex Corp.
Okay, what the heck is that?
All right, so Essex Corp has to do with Mr. Sinister, who's a big bad guy. He's basically...
Is he a mutant?
Yes, I think so. He's kind of like Stryker, only he already has it all privatized already. He has his own corporation experimenting with mutants, and he already has that privatized. No government. It's just him trying to make money and trying to experiment on mutants to make himself more powerful too in the process. In the comics, he's the reason why Cyclops and his brother, in the comics, they get in a plane crash and Havoc survives completely unharmed. The parents supposed to die, but apparently they're still alive in the movies. And Cyclops hits his head, and that's why he can't control his eye beams.
Oh, okay.
And they get captured by Mr. Sinister.
So that's going to work its way.
Maybe there'll be
future.
some connection, but I'm not sure about that.
I see.
But the main thing is that he has Wolverine's DNA. We don't see Mr. Sinister. I don't think that's Mr. Sinister. If that is, then I'm going to be pretty disappointed.
No, that was just like
Mr.
an agent.
Sinister looks a lot cooler in the comics. He's got a cape and everything.
No, they
He's so
haven't
cool.
cast him. I'm sure they haven't
definitely
cast
not.
him.
But with that DNA, I think what they're going to do, and a lot of people are thinking this too, is that since Hugh Jackman's leaving,
But he's got one more.
He's got one more, which is supposed to take place.
And it's Old Man Logan, from what I understand.
That's what people are theorizing, but I think it's going to just take place in that new future that he created. Remember at the end of Days of Future Past when he wakes up?
Yeah.
It's going to take place a little bit after that. Because Professor X is supposed to be in that movie too. Sir Patrick Stewart.
Well, hold on a second. Wait a minute. Let's think about this for a minute. Days of Future Past, there's Wolverine, who came back from the future.
Yeah.
But this movie, there's Wolverine.
This is because remember at the end of Apocalypse when he when he in the 70s he Magneto throws him into the lake and then Stryker picks him up.
Okay,
but here's the stupid thing though. This is a complete plot hole that they did not even acknowledge at all. Is that when Stryker picks him up, it's Mystique, and you see it's her eyes and stuff. And they never.
Yeah.
It's a complete plot hole that they never acknowledge. There's no reasoning behind any of it. It doesn't make any sense.
I'm totally confused now.
Me too. Yeah.
Wait a minute, because when he returns from the time travel, he returns to the 70s.
Yeah. Well, no. When he returns from the time travel, he returns
year
to.
Is it?
It's 2020 something. It's when he's.
Oh.
It's the future that he was in before, and he still has the memories of that future.
Oh, it's the apocalyptic future from Days of Future Past.
To that, but it's fixed.
Okay, because it's fixed and everything's fine and it's sunny and everything.
At that moment when he wakes up, he remembers everything.
Okay.
But before that, he's just living normal 70s Logan, which doesn't make any sense. But
right, because then that means nothing happened. It's so complicated.
Because at some point he gets his memories erased. There's a big loophole there. That's
the other thing I liked in this movie was when they all go to see Return of the Jedi, and they come out going, the third one's really the worst. It's I wonder if they're trying to make a crack about their own film because this is the third of their films.
But it's not. I like this.
Oh no,
one.
yeah,
I loved
liked
it. I mean, it wasn't as good as the other two that they did, but it was
again
still pretty good.
in a way, I feel similar to how I felt with Winter Soldier and the sequel.
There were still some ways in this movie that I liked more than the other one.
First Class was such a fresh take, especially with the 60s theme thrown in, that it was very refreshing and new and fun. Days of Future Past, I know they moved it to the 70s,
yeah,
but it didn't have that feel of being that fresh anymore. It felt more like a continuation, just like this one. This one to me felt more a continuation. I wouldn't say that it is as jarringly inferior to the previous one, like, for example, the original X-Men films. We had X-Men, then the second X-Men was very good. I liked it. Then the third one wasn't that great.
Oh yeah, that was.
So there was such a big.
The second one was better than the first one, in my opinion. For the original ones,
you could be right. You could be right, but there was such a drop between 3 and 4, and it felt like such a big drop.
Yeah.
This one also had that kind of feel that I didn't have it. I didn't have the drop. To me, it felt like it continued on that level. And it's also cool that at the end they're fighting. They're in the danger room and they're fighting the.
Oh yeah, they made the danger room. Yeah,
those giant robots.
And Magneto's a good guy now, which is good. That's awesome.
Well,
I love that.
He's a good guy, but he's not staying with them. He's going off on his own again. It seems so. Now, but let me ask you something because I forgot. What were the bonus scenes on Civil War?
Oh, what was the bonus? Oh yeah, there was Wakanda, where Captain America brings Bucky to Wakanda, where they put him on ice until they can figure out how to fix his memories and stuff.
And what else?
And then after that, it was just Spider-Man in his room with Stark redid his room and made it all cool. And then he did, and they gave him a little spider signal.
Oh, that's
which is from the comics, which is like he only uses it like once, but it's so cool.
Yeah, that was good. That was really cool.
Oh, but I never got to finish explaining the end credit scene for Apocalypse. So that vial of DNA, I think since Wolverine's not coming back, which doesn't make any sense because in this one he runs away and apparently he's supposed to be back in the future. So at some point he has to join the X-Men still, but I don't know how we're going to see that unless they bring him back. Maybe instead of his last Wolverine movie, it's his last Wolverine movie as the main character.
Well, the problem is that he is getting old. He can still pull it off.
I think he's only like 50 though. Like
but I mean, it's just that, remember, his character is not supposed to age. So he is aging like a normal person is aging, but they're trying to keep him young.
They made him look pretty young though in this movie. They made him look like he was in X-Men 1, which was pretty good.
Well, they did it pretty good. And plus, I guess
he also had a lot of hair on him too.
And plus, I guess because of all that gear he was wearing on his head and stuff, that helps to disguise, how old he is also. So that kind of helps him. But we do at least know there's at least one more with Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
I don't know what happens beyond that as far as Fox goes with the X-Men films.
Yeah.
I don't know where they're going to go with it.
The thing is at some point, he has to join the X-Men still. For it to, and I don't know what they're going to do because with that vial, which I keep getting back to the vial, I still haven't said it yet. That vial, everyone thinks they're going to make X-23, which is the female clone of Wolverine, and they're going to put her in Wolverine's place for most of these other movies. Well, no, she's really awesome in the comics. She, instead of 3 claws, she has 2. But she's really good in the comics, so I hope they accurately put her in the movie.
She's not that character from Wolverine Origins.
No, that was...
Didn't somebody say they were bringing back Sabretooth?
I don't know about that.
Is that true or not?
No, that there was a rumor that he was going to appear in this movie, but that never happened.
Well, this is plenty of material here as far as, where Marvel is at right now and films. And we do have a lot more stuff coming, but at least we can kind of take a breather now and rest a little bit from, all these superhero things that are happening right now. And hopefully this kind of catches itself up. Somebody also mentioned something that these vials might have something to do with Deadpool.
I don't know. I mean, they could, because in the comics, the original comics, his healing factor was because of an experiment they did with Wolverine's DNA on him to try to cure him. But I don't think that actually happened in this movie. I think it was just he had the mutant gene in him and they triggered it. And then he has the same.
We'll see.
So I don't know, but I wouldn't. And here's the thing: Deadpool knows about Wolverine, so obviously he's somewhere in the X-Men, somewhere,
Because I keep forgetting the fact that all these X-Men film, all these current X-Men films are taking place chronologically before the original X-Men films that came out in the 90s.
And
I keep forgetting that.
And
so
it's like Deadpool takes place before that future scene in Days of Future Past.
Oh, I'm so confused.
Yeah, it's they gotta iron some stuff out still, but it took me a while I didn't really think about it till I started talking about this.
But anyway, this was a fun film. We saw it in 3D, pretty nice 3D effects. I don't think we're in the age anymore where 3D is jarring, or some people, the 3D it makes everything look fake. Or no, it looked pretty good. They don't overuse it I didn't mind it. It looked fine to me. So let's see what happens next. As usual, I would like to thank Kyle for joining me and you guys for listening. And as soon as we have more information on some of these films, we will let you know. And we will see you here next time at GeekFest Rants. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
This job. We try to save as many people as we can. Sometimes that doesn't mean everybody. But you don't give up.
New York, Washington, D.C., Sokovia.
Okay, that's enough.
Captain, people are afraid.
That's why I'm here. We need to be put in check. Whatever form that takes, I'm game.
I'm sorry, Tony. If I see a situation pointed south, I can't ignore it. Sometimes I wish I could.
Sometimes I want to punch you in your perfect teeth.
I know we're not perfect. But the safest hands are still our own.
I was wrong about you. The whole world was wrong about you. They're coming for you.
I'm not the one that needs to watch their back.
This doesn't have to end in a fight, Tony.
You just started a war. Stay down. Final warning.
I could do this all day.
All right, I've run out of patience. On to roost!
Hey, everyone.
Oh, I'm so confused.
Wiki, 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 wiki.